there, strategic entrepreneurs. I'm Crystal Hunt.
And I'm Michela Mitrani. We are here to help you save time, money, and energy as you level up your writing career.
Welcome to episode 34 of the Strategic Authorpreneur podcast. On today's show, we are talking about book marketing for authors with Fauzia Burke, who is an expert on the subject. But first, what have we been working on this week?
So this is one of the favorite parts of the podcast episode for me because I get to suggest you, if I can take it, one of the book of the day. So you probably saw this book a number of times on the podcast. Please don't kill me, but I'm going to recommend this again. And this is because I actually have my copy here. It's The Emotional Thesaurus, Writer's Guide to Character Expression. And we already spoke about this, but actually had the time to go and dive into it. And I'm on the very first part, which is basically some suggestions that the authors are giving on common problems to writers and how to write nonverbal expression. And I know this guide, by the way, by Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi, or Puglisi if you want the English version. It's very famous for all the suggestions it gives you on expressions, but I'm actually finding the first 25 to 30 pages to be really interesting if you want to go on the background of things, how to craft a believable character, how to pace the story. So it's not just a thesaurus. It's like way more than that. It's really like a writer's guide. And I just wanted to shout out and I wanted to let you know there is more than meets the eyes. And I'm finding a lot of value on that book. So definitely, we have been recommending this guide and with Crystal, even other guides, the Occupational Thesaurus, if I'm not mistaken, and the one regarding the wound, the hole in the soul. So there are a number out there. And this one is super good. And I'm sure all the others are also very good. So really, I suggest you, if you have time and you want to level up your writing, to check it out. And regarding what I've been up to, after reading the Emotional Thesaurus, there are a couple of things that I'm working on. I've been working on these things for the past couple of weeks, actually. And it's kind of a problem, a challenge that I'm having, which is organizing my translation work with my writing work. I'm trying to basically coincide the both of them without getting crazy completely and utterly. And I know that I can be better at it, but I also know that I need to make this process a bit more clean, and I need to make it a bit more something that is viable long term, because I'm going to do this kind of thing, translation and writing. I write in English and then translate into Italian my stories. I need to do this for hopefully years, and I need to manage to find the system that I can keep long term. So it is a bit of a challenge. At this moment, I just finished translating a novella from English into Italian. It took me 15 hours. And it's like another book. It's just really like another book. The process is the same. You have to translate it, give it to betas, then edit it. You have to find the cover for this book. It's not just the translation, it's so much more. I have to be aware of that. I'm seeing there is difficulties even with one. And I just need to take and give myself permission to be a mess at the beginning. But after that, I need to give myself a system that I can follow because I need to make this scalable. And you know that I have this plan of publishing at least 12 different products in 2021. And I need to do that and keep myself healthy in the meantime. So that's the challenge. That's what I'm basically battling with. And I now want to know what Crystal have been battling in the last couple of weeks, or in the last week.
This is a big week. So Eileen Cook and I have been co-writing a book called Full-Time Author: How to Build, Grow, and Maintain a Successful Writing Career That You Love. It's also the week for the Surrey International Writers Conference. So I have been prepping in honor of our book. Eileen and I are co-teaching a masterclass for authors there on how to make basically a business plan for your next year to level up some area of your career that you really want to focus on. And we are also, there's a variety of other things going on. So there's a panel as well that I'm going to be on social media for authors and how to connect with your readers, and then teaching a session on multimedia marketing for authors as well. So how you can bring in things like podcasting or posting videos on YouTube, or, sharing visual assets of your world, things like that. So really, how do you branch out from just the typical social media or newsletter kind of posts and really level it up? So all of those things have been making me think about my own business plan, because as I'm preparing to teach any of these things, I'm always looking for examples. And of course, as I'm reminded of the most strategic way to do these things, it usually highlights things in our own method where we're like, oh, I should probably do that myself, not just teach people that it's a good thing to do. So the teaching is always a good opportunity to brush up on one's own things. So those are all of the excitements in my world. And I guess without further ado, we can dive into our conversation with Fauzia Burke, which is a great look at marketing for authors and what you could and should be doing, and some things to keep in mind to help you be successful as you do it. After the interview, as always, we will be back to chat a little bit about what we've heard. To get started, maybe just if you want to talk a little bit about how you came to be working with authors, because I am meeting you for the first time as well, just like our audience is today.
I know. So nice to meet you, Crystal. Thanks for having me. I got involved in publishing because I came out of college with an English degree, and that's kind of what you do. So I tell people, if you graduate with an English degree, you have to go get a low-paying job in publishing. That's sort of the style. So I started in book publishing in New York City. And then in 95, I actually saw the internet for the first time. I was working at Henry Holt at the time, which is part of Macmillan. And I just thought the internet was going to change book marketing. I was in book marketing, book publicity before then. And you might know this already, but book publishing is a slow-moving enterprise. So in 95, when I thought the internet was, going to change the world, everybody was like, it's fine. It's not. It's going to go away. So I resigned and I started FSP Associates. So now this year we actually celebrate our 25th anniversary. And my company, basically, what we're known best for is digital marketing. So I've been working with, and just for authors. So I've pretty much been working with authors my entire career. So that's kind of how I got involved in it. And I love it. I love being able to talk to authors every day, like yourself.
And you wrote a book about it too.
I did, yes. So I wrote a book called Online Marketing for Busy Authors. And I wrote it because every author I talked to started off with like, oh my God, I hate marketing. I'm so busy. I have a job. I'm writing my book. I have my family. Now I'm supposed to find time to do marketing. So I wrote a book that I thought would get them to where they needed to be without making a 300-page book that, authors don't really want to know that much about marketing. They just want to know how much they need to get done to get away with it. So that's kind of why I wrote it. And I think it's just me sort of helping them figure out what's the best strategies for themselves.
Excellent. And that is definitely a common and recurring theme with all of our listeners and everyone that we've worked with over the years is, okay, but seriously, like how much do I have to do?
Exactly.
And we're talking not more, but less is definitely more in this one area. On that, I think everyone can agree. And I would love to hear a little bit more about what you tell them when they ask you that. What is your answer? What little can we get away with?
So I always tell authors that, there's a certain amount that you have to do. You don't have to do every single platform. You don't have to blog every single day, but you do need to build a relationship with your readers. That there's no way to get out of that one. So how can we figure that out? So I have this formula that I use with my clients. It's called design plus engagement plus visibility equals marketing success. And what that means is that design is how we look online. So for me, it means the website, the mailing list, social media, how all of that looks together. Simple things like making sure you're claiming your Amazon author page, making sure your photo is not pixelated and out of focus and hopefully matches everything else. Simple things that authors feel like, oh, I could do that. I could figure that out. So that's sort of our step one. And then we move on to engagement, which is how often do you want to blog? How often do we want to send out a newsletter? How often do you want to post on social media? Which social media platforms work best for you and your audience? And then we build on that with visibility in terms of publicity, podcasting, advertising, anything. So what I tell authors is that they focus on the things that are important first, like in order of priority. I think it works better. So a lot of times they come to me and they're throwing everything out at me at the same time, right? I need to promote my book. I need to do advertising. I have to do something about my Facebook page. What do I do about my website? And a lot of times it's because they've heard things from, their nephew's cousin, their neighbor, their Uber driver, their best friend. And so I just have to kind of strip all that out and say, okay, let's prioritize. Let's calm down. Let's work on the first thing, which is your website. The second most important thing is your mailing list. Then let's pick the social media that you're comfortable with, that you enjoy doing, and then we'll build on that. So if they come to me with like, what do I do about publicity? I'm like, we're so not ready for publicity. So just hold that thought. And I think that helps people, authors, to just kind of say, okay. And I give homework, which authors love, believe it or not. They love
Yes.
homework. So that helps a little bit to just kind of channel them and reduce the anxiety and just kind of give them like step by step what we need to do.
Yeah, I think that's the most common problem people have is that there are, like you said, everyone has an opinion on what you should be doing, and it's slightly different everywhere you read it. And when you add up all those different things, it's a million things, and it's completely overwhelming. So somebody being able to tell you, right, do this next is actually very freeing. And you'd think it would be restrictive, but it's actually the opposite. It's like, oh, thank goodness, I have permission to concentrate on this one thing, and I'm going to do this thing. And that's great because I can handle one thing. You brought up something I think is really important to clarify for our readers, which is some people think marketing and publicity and advertising are the same thing. And I think maybe they're not. So if you could do a little elaborating on that for us.
Yeah, such a good question, because so many people really do talk about them interchangeably, and they're not the same thing. So I definitely want to talk to authors about that. So think about, I hope this is not going to geek people out, but think about it in three terms, which is there's sort of in the media environment, there is owned media, there is earned media, and there is paid media. So in your marketing plan, your owned media is actually all of the media that you own. Your website, your blog, your podcast, all the things you control, and you can basically come on them every day and say, I'm the greatest author that ever lived. It's you. You own it. Go for it, right? Then the next one is earned media. Earned media is people talking about you and your book without you being able to pay them or influence them in any way. So it's earned. It's earned because you've earned it with writing a good book, or being a good citizen, or being a good, person on social media. Whatever it is that has made it possible for people to want to promote you. That's called earned media. That's publicity, because you can't pay for it. right? You have to earn it. And then the third piece is paid media, which is advertising. So advertising is where you can pay someone and say, hey, I want you to run this banner ad. I want to sponsor your podcast. You have a lot of control over when it runs and the messaging. And all of that together is marketing. So when you think about marketing, people just kind of think, they can say any of those things, but that's how you think about them separately. And if you think about them separately, also, again, I'm about separating things out for people so they can kind of focus on it. So when we think about these three aspects, you think, okay, here's what I own. What's my timeline for this, right? When can I blog? When can I send a newsletter? This is how I control the content and the timing. Publicity, you control not the timing at all. It's up to the producer, the editor, the blogger to post something for your book. You can ask them to post it around publication date. You can hope that it'll be a good review. No control, either way. But it has higher degree of integrity and it gives you more credibility. So you have no control, but high credibility. And then advertising, you have all the control in the world, semi-credibility, because of course you can say I'm the greatest author that ever lived. So that's sort of how you have to decide. And if you think about them that way, then you can think about it in timeline, as well as your budget, as well as what happens when. But I hope that helps, because I feel like that sort of makes people go, oh, now I get that.
Yeah, I think that helps a lot. And you'll hear often people talk about digital sharecropping, or the idea of building on someone else's land, which is if your only online presence is in other people's platforms like Facebook or, somewhere that you don't own, that is not owned media. Like, even though you think of it as your Facebook page, it really isn't yours, because it could change or go or get shut down at any moment. So you really don't control that. So I think that's super helpful for people to think about what category their pieces fit into, and how many eggs are in each basket are you building into that. And I think the point you made earlier about saying to someone you're not ready for publicity yet is like, if you're rolling the dice on the publicity side and they don't have to give you a positive review and they don't have to say nice things about you, then you do need to make sure you are as polished and ready and setting yourself up for success in that way as you possibly can.
100%. And so I think it's really important for authors to not, sometimes they get offended if someone says, listen, this is not the right project for me. You should thank that person, because they're saving you money. Because if your book jacket looks amateurish, right? If your book hasn't been edited thoroughly, then you're going to get out there and people are going to either not do anything for you, they're just going to ignore you, or they're going to say, this was terrible. The book needed editing, the book needed a better book jacket and all of that. So it's really important to make sure that when you're stepping into that arena, you are putting your best foot forward, and don't send out half-baked stuff, for sure. That's not going to work at all.
Yes, that one chance to make a first impression thing is not wrong. So make it count. Yes. And what do you think are some of the key pieces if someone's trying to polish up their online presence? What would you have them take a look at first before they dive?
So their website, I think, of course, the book jacket is really important, because that's your ambassador out there in the world, right? You don't control it. It's just gone. So you want to make sure you start off with a really good professional website, for sure. A book jacket. And then the next step, in my opinion, is a website, because that's your home base. I know that authors sometimes feel like, well, I have the Facebook page, but as you said very smartly, you do not own that page. They can take it down anytime. And so you've built a whole enterprise around something you don't own. So making sure that you have a website that you not only can update yourself, which I think is really important for authors now. Those days are gone where you sent an update to a webmaster and waited 3 days before they updated it. You've got to be able to do it yourself. So a website is really important. The second piece for me is your mailing list. It's slow growing, it's not as glamorous, but you own those people and they have given you permission to show up in their inbox, which is a huge thing. Huge commitment for them to make. So please make sure that you're paying attention to that and that people can sign up for your mailing list on your website. So those two things kind of go hand in hand, and in all honesty are probably the most important. And then we spend, as you know, authors spend a lot of time talking about social media. It's the sexy topic. But I think that it's important for authors to pick maybe 2 platforms where they can fully commit and enjoy and participate in a community rather than trying to be everywhere and barely covering their bases. So that's sort of where I think it's really important for them to think about priorities. And I often tell authors, where do you see yourself 5 years from now? So don't just think about this book launch, because that's what they do, right? 2 weeks before, I have had authors write to me and say, I've been on Twitter for 2 weeks now and I don't see a change in my Amazon ranking. So,
yes.
Yeah, not how quickly as, if it was a sales channel, it would be great, but it's not. So I think it's really important to kind of think about what you want to do long term, have the tools in place that you enjoy using, that you can use yourself. You can certainly have assistance, you can certainly have help from other people, but you need to have a little bit more power in how you can do things. And things are pretty easy now. Tools are pretty easy to use now. So I would say that's probably the single most important thing, is to just kind of have a platform that you control and have consistency. I think maybe you said that in one of your interviews. Consistency is just so important.
And you got to like it because, or at the very least not hate it. Because if you're going to be spending lots of time somewhere and really you're trying to engage with your audience, but if you are just doing it because you have to, and there's air quotes in there for those of you listening
yes.
To the audio right now, you're not going to want to do it. And that's going to make the consistency hard, and you're going to feel like you're being punished, which is not going to make you want to dig right in and do that. And I think timeline is an important thing to talk about because, as you said, a lot of people think, oh, yeah, this should be working already. And it just isn't. And, what do you think is a realistic timeline if somebody is looking at platform building? How long do you think that takes? And it's really hard to sort of
No, it's not hard. It's just a tough thing to tell people because they're like, no, don't tell me that. It takes, in my opinion, between a year to 18 months to really see the impact of what you're doing consistently. So the problem is, in the beginning, it is one way. You're putting stuff out and you're just one of the bazillion people putting things out. So there is no connection. It takes a while for people to say, wow, this guy or gal shows up pretty regularly. They do this pretty regularly, or I've seen this has been funny. It takes a while to build on that. And then when people start following you, responding, following back, all of that takes a long time. You're basically building trust. How long did it take you to build trust with your best friend? How long did it take you to build trust with your employees or your staff or anywhere where we are building trust? It takes a while. It's not overnight. You have to, pay the dues and all. So it's really like how you would build trust in real life is how you build trust online. The only thing is, in real life, we can connect with people on an energetic level, and within a second you feel like you've met your best friend, right? I mean, we've all had that experience. It's harder online because there's so much noise and there's that disconnect in terms of, I can't read your energy. I don't know if you're being funny or sarcastic or, all of that takes a while to kind of get the rhythm of other people and yourself. So I think it takes 18 months. Which I know most authors don't like hearing, which is why I was cringing. I was like, oh, I have to tell them.
And I usually say 18 months to 2 years because,
there you go.
I think you're also trying to write in the meantime, and you're
Yes.
trying to do all these other things. And especially if you're starting from zero and you don't have a lot of products or a lot of community already to be talking about, I do think it's really important for people to understand this is not a sprint. This is a lifestyle that you're committing to. Now, a lot of people want to know, is there a difference between fiction and nonfiction authors or books when you're looking at platform building and how you approach that?
Yeah, for sure. So, building a platform for nonfiction is easier You have a specialty, you have a topic that you are, have studied in, have done research in, you've written a book about it, you're an expert in it. And so you don't have to really think about what else you can be talking about because you have a focus. And that helps really a lot because that's your primary audience, way of building the primary audience, but also primary topic. Right? You have a primary topic. You can talk about other things on social media and your blogs and your newsletter, but you've got a primary interest. The problem with fiction is I've had agents who call me and say something like, well, that's just another novel. And then you have to kind of go, yes, that's right. It's just another novel. So how do we make the novelist really stand out? How do we make that be a different thing? And then I think sometimes authors will sort of look at the nonfiction hooks in their books, and sometimes they work, right? If you've written a book about, whatever the main thing is, I'm trying to be politically correct. Anything that comes in my head,
flower
I'm
arranging.
Like, wait,
Flower arranging. The book
Thank
is
you.
about a florist. Yes.
Yes. And hopefully you've done a little bit of your legwork in terms of what flowers are available, what brides like in their flowers, whatever it is. There's a little bit of an expertise that you gained from making that making that a topic of your novel. There's a theme there. But I've had authors who've told me, can you promote my book to sushi websites because the main character really likes sushi? Yeah, that's not a hook. That is not a hook. That is not how it's going to go. So it's really important for novelists to be practical about what hooks are legitimate. Almost all authors think their books are for everyone. There's tons of things that you can, pick out. One time I had an author, this was nonfiction, but it was funny. Basically a cardiologist, smart person, wrote this book. And I said, we were talking about audiences, and I thought that was a pretty straightforward audience. And he said to me, no, it's for everyone because, everyone has a heart. And I thought, that is true. Not how publicity works, but it is a true statement. So that's kind of the thing to think about, is that it's not just what is a true statement. Yes, your main character likes sushi, true statement. But what is a media hook? That's different than themes in your book. What are the themes that will attract a media person? And then also one of the issues with novels you have to be careful about is that, you may have written a book where the main character is a florist, so you're talking about flower arranging, but then there are entire nonfiction books that are just about flower arrangement. So you're going after people who are like, no, I don't cover novels, we cover nonfiction books. So it's really difficult to think about media hooks in that way. So for novelists, it's so important to build a first of all, to write a really good book because there's a lot of competition. So you've got to make sure that you've written a good book. And then the second thing is to really have a relationship with your readers. It takes longer to build. They need to learn, like your style, and want to follow your style. And so I think all of those things make for a longer period for a novelist than a nonfiction person, but sometimes even more gratifying, because you have a much more, as some people say with fiction, it's a very intimate relationship between the reader and the book, right? It's every reader is going to take something else away from it. And I think that's a very intimate experience versus nonfiction, which is kind of like, oh, we all kind of learn flower arranging from this book. So I think there are pros and cons on both sides, but it takes longer on novel side for sure.
Let's do a little digging into a couple different things. So you mentioned some newer tools for authors. And so I'm always curious what is coming, what is new, fresh, hot, what's the cutting edge kind of stuff. So what can you give us a little glimpse into the future here? What should we be watching for?
So I love tools, and I think I'm always in the lookout for the new stuff, but that's my job. I tell my clients, you don't have to be on the cutting edge of tools because you could learn something, because everything you have to learn, right? You learn something and then it doesn't quite work out, it fizzles or whatever. So for authors, it's important to have tools that they can trust and they can use and are established. For people like us, probably more geeky people, we like tools, right? I mean, I spend a lot of time going, wait, what is this thing? So I think for that reason, some of those tools are really important for us. But I think for authors, it's probably important to kind of think about not feeling overwhelmed, not feeling like, oh my God, there's 4 million tools out there. But so there's two different things. I can talk about what I think recommend for authors, and then I can talk about what I recommend for playing around and fooling around. So for authors, I think that, having a platform for website development that you like and that you can enjoy working on and that scales with you is really important. For a mailing list, there's so many good tools out there. I think whatever feels comfortable, because they're all good at this point. We happen to use, for websites, we use obviously Pubsite because we're biased, but we've used everything before that. And then we use MailChimp for newsletters. But again, there's Constant Contacts, there's MailerLite, whatever you like and you enjoy and works for your budget, it's fine. We just happen to like MailChimp, and they've done nothing to get us off of that train. So that's our train. And then for graphics, we love Canva. I have a lot of other programs. I think Adobe is doing some good stuff there, but Canva is great. It's simple. It's easy. They're growing. So once you build that, I think that's a really good one. For scheduling posts on social media, obviously Hootsuite, Buffer, any of those are really good. There's a relatively unknown one that I use just because we manage so many different feeds. So you wouldn't need to do it if you were just managing yourself. But we use Promo Republic, which I like a lot. And Promo Republic allows you to post to all your feeds and multiple channels. So it does help us when we're managing our clients' social media, our own. We have so many of our own. So it just helps us do that. And it's got the graphics piece built in. So it's the graphics plus the scheduler built in one, which helps us. So that's kind of the tools that I feel are kind of must for authors. These are things that they absolutely need to learn and be able to use.
Well, my accountant thinks that I'm a software developer because of how many tools and software that I buy. I have not been able to convince him in 15 years that I am actually an author who writes books. He does not get it. So, yeah, I'm all about the tools and the fun. So much.
So fun.
So if we want to totally geek out, I'm curious, have you tried BookBrush before on the visual side?
So I have, yes. So we've tried it a little bit. I haven't needed it quite as much because we don't do a lot of ads. And I feel like a lot of their graphics have been more ad oriented. We're more publicity people, so it hasn't really come up as much. But we have it. We haven't used it quite as much. But I think it's great. It's fabulous. I love the fact that you can do the 3D jacket. That helps a lot. So I like that.
Fun.
Yeah, makes it a lot easier because I think it's hard to do the 3D without having like a big program that you can use. So
yes. And I think you mentioned Promo Republic, which I bought as well off of AppSumo. So I'm going to do a shout out for anybody who's watching that it doesn't necessarily matter which tool you have. It matters that you have a tool that works for you, that's affordable. So in the show notes, there's going to be a link to AppSumo. Social Bee is another one that I bought off AppSumo. That's a social media management tool. There's a bunch that do similar things, and they're similar for video as well. So check the show notes. You can click through and go cruising on there. Be warned. It is a tool buyer's dream and also nightmare at the same time because you will want to buy everything. But if you have a list for yourself of which tools you think are going to help you with the next stage of things, then that will get you started. And I want to talk more about your Pubsite tool because authors struggle so much with professional looking websites. And I remember the first time I got a quote for a website, and this is 15 years ago, and the guy quoted me $10,000 for an author website. And I had like 2 children's books at the time.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah.
okay, I guess I'm learning to be a web designer because I can't afford that.
Right.
So I know that you have a better solution, and I would love for our listeners to also know about that solution.
Yes, I would love to tell you about it. So we've been doing websites for 20 years. In fact, I think my company was the first company to do an author website. We did a website for Sue Grafton in '97, which I think literally was the first author website. The New York Times covered it as like things authors are doing now. Like, whoa. So we've had a long journey with author websites, and we've done websites for big time authors and first time authors and all of that. And we've used WordPress, we've used other tools, we've used, lots of different ways to build websites. And then what we realized is that, when Squarespace and Wix and Weebly sort of came on the market, which is about 10 years ago now, we thought, okay, well, this is great because this will help. This is not a primary business for us. It was never a primary business. We did it to help authors, to help our clients. So we thought, okay, great. These tools are going to solve all these problems, right? Done. Well, as you're laughing, I think they did not solve all the problems. And the thing is, a lot of these tools are phenomenal. They are amazing, and they're really a feat of engineering. They're so good. However, we have a small little window of people we serve. They're authors. That's it. It's not event planners. It's not photographers. It's not restaurants. It's authors. And the things that authors need on their website are so specific that none of the other platforms have any reason to build that. But authors really need it. So what happens is, and I think you've probably seen this, a lot of the platforms, the themes that authors are now using for their websites from those platforms are very graphic oriented, right? Huge, big graphics. In my opinion, they're just stock photos, so they don't have any kind of appeal for me. I had one author, and she was working on a website, and it was a novel, and basically based in the American South, and it was a very interesting story. I went to her website, and she had a graphic on top that was Chinese lanterns that was swaying because it was a graphic that was moving. And I asked her, I said, why? And she said, oh, it's so pretty. And I was like, yes, but it had nothing to do with your book. Plus, not only does it have nothing to do with your book, it's now downloading really slowly. It's a nightmare on your phone. What is happening here? So some of those things just kind of bugged me, that the things that work really well for a restaurant, like having a big image of like what the restaurant looks like, would be really appealing to someone going to eat, or food pictures, food porn or something like that. But how is that helping authors? We're word people. So a lot of those website themes are so graphic oriented with very little text, like literally like 10 words about something. Very little text, and we're all text people. People who read books, they want to read long bios, they want to read an excerpt, they need content. So we realized that those platforms were not really serving the needs of our authors. They were really frustrated by it. They were spending a lot of time with dragging and dropping, which would make the page alignment off, and then they were trying to figure out spending a lot of time on it for no reason. So we created actually a platform from scratch called Pubsite. It's pub-site.com. It's just for authors. It's just for books. It's made actually with a very robust database in the back end. So you can scale from 1 book to 100 books without ever changing the platform, changing the design. It all kind of scales and grows with you. So you can add things to the site as you grow into it. If you have a book tour, there's a book tour tool. You can take it off when you don't need it. When it's over, put it in when you need it. Add the blog, take the blog off. It makes life really easy for authors to sort of like change how they want to express themselves. So the themes are all, because everything is in a database, it's very easy to switch themes. So you can actually change the themes, change the colors. You can actually change it almost as you would your Facebook cover image. It's that simple. So just kind of having a lot of flexibility with it makes it a little, makes it much easier. And it's very fast. That was a big thing for me. It's a lot of the Weebly, Squarespace, Wix websites can tend to be very programming heavy. So they just hang. And I don't know if you've seen this, but sometimes you can get to a website and just hangs there, right? Because it's trying to download all of that software programming behind the scenes, plus the visuals. So it just kind of hangs, and people don't have a lot of time. So I tell authors, I want a simple website where you can get in, get to a bookseller as quickly as possible, so you're not having to figure out how to buy a book. That's the purpose of your website. Make sure that there is a bio that they can read. There's a sign up for a mailing list, and they can follow you on social media. Like, that needs to happen almost immediately. Where are your social media links? Like, where are they in terms of your website? Yes, they're all the way on the bottom. That's the themes, but that's kind of not what we want. You want them to be up top, because that's kind of a crucial part of building your platform. But you have to literally go through these themes that, there's a big image, and then there's a little bit of description, then there's these 3 blog posts, and then there's like your services, and then all the way at the bottom is sign up for your mailing list and your social media, which from a marketing perspective, I'm like, are you going to get everyone all the way to the bottom? So simple things like that, just kind of making sure that the website platform is really easy to use. And then we've created a kind of a workflow. So if you just fill in the blanks, if you go from tab to tab and fill in the blanks, you get a website. So you don't have to worry about what goes on what page, what should be on my website, how do I do this? It's literally fill out the forms and you get a website. So it's really easy to use for authors. I think it's very empowering for them, because not everybody is a graphic genius. And so a lot of the graphical websites are really hard, intimidating for them to use. This is a very straightforward website. You can add graphics if you want, but it really is about your book jacket. Showcase your book jackets. And we got really lucky because we launched it 2 years ago. And we already have people like Tom Clancy and Robin Cook and Reader's Digest Trade Publishing. The publishing company is using our platform because it's so scalable, because it's so easy to enter 10 more books without having to create 10 more pages on your website. So for that reason, I think for people who have a career ahead of them, it's a good platform to use. It's not for everyone. I always tell people it's one of the options, just like there's so many different options out there, but we like it.
And I think it is really important. Like there are different kind of people. And yes, I find it totally fascinating to spend hours digging in code in the back end of a website, but that's not most authors' preference. And so if you just want to get it done and check that box and have it looking polished and not be trying to learn how to be a graphic designer and a web designer and all of these other things at the same time, then it's perfect to find a solution that is scalable and will kind of take care of everything for you. Then I think that is absolutely fantastic. And I think the key thing is that when you go and you find all these other solutions that are made for small businesses, most small business works the opposite way that authors do. All they want is to sell you the first thing, because then they build a relationship from there. And we're kind of the other way around. You're trying to sell them on a relationship, and then you've got books that are going to come out over a period of potentially decades. And hopefully, so one person with a real relationship to you is a completely different ballgame from a lifetime purchasing perspective. You're not just depending on that product to convert them, although you do have to write a good enough book to keep them coming back for more. But it is, I think, why a lot of the standard templates and things that are out there really they're not made for authors. And so that's what's always cool, is when stuff is created from a place of somebody who's inside the industry. Then I think any tool you get that's built from the inside out is always going to be giving you exponential returns on your value. So that is fantastic.
Yeah, I think one of the things you said that's really important is that a small business, a restaurant or whatever, is selling that one thing, right? We're selling maybe 10 books, maybe like yourself, many books in many genres. You're selling a lot of different things, so it's not easy to you have a lot of product. So you've got to make sure that you can um, organize them in a way that people can get to them, that they know what's available, how different each one is. You're really having to pitch differently because you have more things. The other thing with Pubsite that we built in is that you can add bookseller links. Of course, you can in any platform, but on our platform, you can actually have bookseller links from around the world. So the platform is for English-speaking countries. So there are links for Australian booksellers and Canadian booksellers and UK booksellers and obviously US booksellers, lots of options that you just put in the link to that page and the button appears exactly where it's supposed to be. You don't have to drag and drop it. It just appears. And then even for the follow buttons, yes, of course, we have social media follow buttons like all other platforms, but we also have follow buttons for BookPub, Goodreads, Amazon. So those things are so specific to our industry that who would think to have them? So I think that's really important. And it's not a one-page site. This is not a landing page. This is a full-on, robust website where you can have, photo gallery, you can have a blog, you can have your, all sorts. I mean, it's a very robust site and people are using it in ways that's really fun. And you can actually also do e-commerce on it if that's built in as well. So some of my clients have been selling cards that kind of match the book, or some illustrators have been doing bookmarks and things like that. So pins, some people are selling. So it's just kind of fun to see people using it as a real business tool.
And I think now, as the bookstore opportunities to do in-person signings and things like that are kind of not available at the moment. And
yes,
that is extra important. If you have somewhere that your readers can buy a signed copy that you can send them, I mean, that's not hard on the bottom line. And it's also really nice to be able to offer a personalized connection in that way. And
that's
I think
exactly right.
Yes. Especially for wide authors who are looking to kind of just be in as many places as you possibly can. You've ignored the exclusivity option for a reason, which means take advantage of everything that's out there, basically.
Yes.
And I know Fauzia has also created a fantastic resources page on her website, because I was doing a little digging around of my own before today.
Yes.
And so we will put the link in the show notes, but you should definitely check that out. I saw some branding guides and some workbooks and some tip sheets and all kinds of stuff to help you through this process and making yourself a plan and figuring out how to roll this out. Not to mention all the blog articles, and there was quite a wealth of those.
Yes, and nothing is you have to sign up to get them. Just they're all available. You don't have to sign up for my mailing list if you don't want to, but I just always find those kinds of things more cheesy than anything else. So everything is available. Everything is, and it's useful. So I hope that people will take advantage of it.
I think they will, as long as you tell us the domain name they should be going to.
Yes. So it's FauziaBurke.com. That's FauziaBurke. And they can get the information there. And my website is done on Pubsite. So you can kind of see what I've done on it.
Perfect. And what are your favorite social media platforms? If people want to connect online with you, where should they be looking?
So yeah, I'm on everything obviously, but I really love Twitter because I was one of the, the early, I know people hate Twitter, but it's still one of my favorite tools, still one of my favorite platforms. I have Facebook author page as well, and Instagram, of course, but I think I probably communicate more and have more fun on Twitter.
All right.
And it's just FauziaBurke.com. Everything is just FauziaBurke.com. So
excellent. All right. Well, we know where to find you, and I have no doubt that people will. We will also put all of that contact info in the show notes so people can follow up, and you can find all the goodies on there and take Pubsite for a spin, maybe if you're in the market for an author website.
Yes, 14-day free trial.
Ooh, excellent. Okay, there you go. You can literally take it for a test run.
You literally can. Thank you, Crystal.
So we're back, and I found what Fauzia said about marketing and building your own, basically, platform. That's what she was hinting at. Very interesting. her point of view when it comes with the formula that she speaks about in the first part of the interview. I found it to be very interesting and very refreshing, Crystal. Particularly, she used a formula which is composed by three parts: the design, the engagement, and the visibility. I found that to be like a refreshing view of what I try to apply in my author business, and I know you do something similar for yours. And basically, what she's trying to say is with design plus engagement and plus visibility equal marketing success. And she takes some time to explain each and every single one of these elements. She says design is basically how we look online. So the website, our website, the mailing list, the social media that we control, our author, even our photograph, our pics, that is something that makes our visibility out there. And then there is the engagement, which is, for example, how often do we blog, or how often do we send a newsletter? And it's also, I think, part of our brand, because there are people that, and I knew these people that send like a newsletter every week, other people every day, other people every month. But if it's okay with your public, with your audience, it's fine if it's part of your brand. So this is engagement. And also how often you post on social media. So this is another strategic kind of decision you will have to take as an entrepreneur. And then there is the visibility. I think like this, what we are doing now, Crystal, is an example of visibility. Podcasting can be an example of that. Advertising is another thing that she mentioned. But there are so many things. And I think one of the most important takeaway is that you should do what matter first. So do the important things before everything else. And what are these most important things? Website is king, mailing list is queen probably, and then we have social media and all the other use. Even with social media, Fauzia basically gives her suggestion: don't concentrate on too many the first time, maybe on 1 to 2. Try to understand them, try to see if they work with you. But basically, the bottom line on what she's trying to explain, what her formula is, again, design plus engagement plus visibility equal a marketing success. It's really something that depends on your moment in time in your entrepreneurial career and who you are. Me, Michela Mitrani, I am at the different stage of Crystal Hunt in different regards, but I think I can apply that formula as she can apply if she found that useful in that moment in any single aspect of our career. And I would really like to ask you, Crystal, if you find that this formula can be applied in different cases. And also, what do you think of that marketing success? Because like she speaks about marketing success, but it's a broader element. What do you think of that element? How is it important for authors?
I think it comes into play in a few different ways, but the formula itself is effectively what we've talked about, I think, a number of times, where you're going to build the pieces consistently with your brand and in a way that will connect with your readers. And then you're going to figure out what channels those pieces are going to go on to, right? So you're going to send them out and use them to connect with people. And then you're going to try to raise the visibility. So increase number of newsletter followers and number of social media followers, and sort of slowly amplify that message through additional channels with each new thing that you add into the mix. But I think if we go all the way back in the podcast to our first guest, who was Liza Palmer, talking about not trying to boil the ocean. So not trying to do everything. And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, now would be a good time to go back and just revisit the social media for authors conversation that we had. I think there was a lot of really interesting things in that one. And it is, I think, really important as we are kind of reconfiguring our business plans and retargeting. We're both making a switch to going wide in the near future here. And that means cultivating a different pool of readers in a slightly different way. And I think updating and changing some of our messaging just to make sure that we are totally maximizing everything about how we're reaching out. And also going wide, it involves a lot more platforms. That involves a lot more things to track and look after. So I think it's really important that we only dedicate our time to the marketing things that we know are going to have an impact, and also that we really focus on just the minimum, right? That 80-20 rule is that you're going to get 80% of your results from 20% of the things that you do. And if you can cut out the other 80% that are just costing you time, not really giving you a lot of return on that investment, you'll have a lot more time for actually writing your books and for the part of marketing and things that is that amplification. So finding podcasts to go be on, finding other authors to do newsletter swaps with, being part of a box set, whatever that is how you're going to reach additional readers, learning how to run your ads platforms properly. All of those things are going to take a lot of time. So I think really that focusing in on just one or two things is kind of the key message out of all of that. And then of course, consistency and authenticity across your brand and across all the ways that you're connecting with your readers are always going to be key elements of any successful marketing plan. And I think none of it happens overnight. It all takes time to build. And it's really important to remember that you're in this for the long haul. And it really is just gathering one or two fans at a time. You're always working towards those 1,000 true fans, right?
Yeah, I think like the concept that you explain about timing, that's something that she also spoke a lot in the interview. And there's actually something that she says about time, which made me pause. And she's been working with a lot of authors. She's been doing this for a very long time. She was relating when, I think the story was in 96 or 97 when the internet was really coming along. And they were like, she was like, I can see that there is potential in this, even for the book world. But the people that work in the industry, some of them would say, no, it's not going to last. Guess what? It's 2020. It's lasting. It's not going anywhere. So it changed the book publishing and the business. But it was nice that she saw through that. And now she has a business based on that. She's helping a lot of authors. One of the things she underlines is the time. It's huge. So what I mean about time is that she said it takes 1 year to 18 months to really see the impact on what you're doing as an author consistently. So that doesn't mean that you publish one book every 2 years and that after 18 months you see a result. You have to be consistent in what you're doing. And we spoke about the concept more than once, Krista, in the podcast, but consistency, getting to understand what's working, using an element like the 80-20 rule, the Pareto approach, you're basically building trust. That's what she's saying. And that requires time. She said, again, how long did it take to build trust with your friend or your best friend? You're building that kind of stuff. Especially, I would venture if you're writing fiction, because that's even a slower burner than nonfiction. She spoke a bit about that, the difference between the two approaches. I think it's super, hyper, extra important to consider that patience, going on the long game, really taking your time to understand what's the strategy that is best for you, what you can do with the resources that you have, time, energy, and money. I will never think that I can write 3 epic fantasy per year because I don't have the time and I don't have the skills. But I can definitely write a novella every 2 to 3 months. I can do that. So I think that's important, Krista. And that's why I brought up that point. It's because time is of the essence, really. And you shouldn't expect a result that is coming immediately. Again, Fauzia gave us the example of the lovely author she was following, and that he, if I'm not mistaken, was a gentleman, and he was calling her and say, "Hey, I've been working on my Twitter account for 2 weeks, but I don't see any result in sales." And she was like, "Really?" So we have to be very careful in considering what is time frame, what is the long period. For me, it's like at least a year you have to see and gather the data or the data before taking the decision. But I think this is something fundamentally important for us as authors to understand. You're not going to see any result in 2 months or in 3 months, especially if you're working, building your platform, or if you're starting out. Me and Krista probably are on the similar path on that point of view. We are basically starting out, Krista. We are going wide. We are taking the plunge, if you will. We are risking. But I think before making an assumption, or even before really understanding if our plan worked or not, we have to wait and be consistent in while the time we are waiting. And I would like to know what you think of this 1 year to 18 months. If you have a different time frame, what do you think of what she said about this?
I think that's really accurate. And I mean, as I said in the interview, I think it actually even takes longer than that for a lot of people, partly because of a lack of consistency. You know, when you're first getting started with something, you're just learning how to use a platform and you don't really get how it works. I think a year of something consistently, once you've figured it out, is a good testing period. But I think that if you are sort of half-heartedly learning it and blending it in with your other tasks and just sort of figuring it out, you often need to add at least another 6 months on the front end of that, of you just learning how things work. Because probably most of what you do in the first few months on a new platform is not very effective, because you are just learning your way around, and you should be kind of lurking a bit and seeing how other people are using it successfully, and getting a sense of what might work in that specific space. A lot of people jump into a new platform and just bring all the content they've made for somewhere else and just throw it out there on the new platform. And it's really easy to tell when something is not made. Like if you take a Facebook post and you just throw it up on Twitter, no, I'm shaking my head here. No, for the people who are on video and can't hear me doing that, it doesn't work, because you haven't tailored things to be optimized for that particular platform. So that's part of why that don't try to do all the things is so important, is because you won't be doing it well. I mean, yes, there are plugins and bots and programs that will blast the same thing out everywhere on every channel, but you don't usually do yourself a lot of favors by doing that, because people don't ever truly engage because they know that's what you've done. It doesn't feel like it belongs on that channel. So I think just really important to remember, optimize everything. We always talk about optimizing things and being strategic with your keywords and the categories you choose, and social media and connecting with your marketing is no different. You want to know your readers and really tailor everything you're doing to the way that you connect with those people on that platform. Speaking of connection, this is one of my favorite parts of the episode, where we bust out the curious jar and we get to rifle around in it and find a question from the random ones that have been sent to us to answer. So, Michele, tell me when to stop.
You can stop now.
Oh, there's two, blue or orange. They're attached.
Blue.
Okay. Here we go.
I just took the prompt one, just so you know.
Interesting. What is your favorite day in the week?
My answer to that is there any difference? Because I don't know. Is there any difference between those? I think Monday is my favorite week. So if I feel like, okay, this week was a bit of I didn't do a lot, I can start over. It's basically the promise that the universe is giving to me. Okay, you messed up, you can do it again. Retry and retry. So there are a number of movies that are basically rotating around the idea of the day starts over and starts over. I actually found it as a possibility to learn. If I did something not right in a week, I can start over on Monday. And if I did something okay, I can double in the next week. So I'm even more excited. That's my answer to the question of the favorite day of the week, which, again, if I didn't have my calendar, I wouldn't be able to distinguish between a day and the other. But that's part of also your answer. I want to know what's your favorite day of the week, Krista.
Currently it's Sunday because Sunday is my book nothing day. And so the deal is I get to follow the energy and do whatever I want all day. And so often that actually does result in I might be writing, I might be working on something for mapping for my characters, I might be like watching a show and collecting information on whatever career I'm currently working on. I do often end up, and I'm going to put working in quotation marks here, but because I don't have to, it's not on the schedule, it feels really different. And so I will do some other kinds of crafty stuff like collaging some things and just whatever feels like fun. And so I really do love that just gentler pace and just kind of floating through the day. So I'm working towards making most of my week more like Sundays, actually. And so I'm getting there. But for the moment, that is the one that I've been able to protect like crazy. So it is my current favorite. All right. We would love to hear your answer to the Curious Jar question. So you can share that with us in the comments below wherever you are listening to or watching this episode. And we would also love if you want to send us any questions. So you can email ideas@strategicauthorpreneur.com and we will add your question to the Curious Jar.
Also, for show notes and links to resources that we mentioned in this episode, and for coupons and discounts on the tool we love, please visit us at strategicauthorpreneur.com. Also, if you're thinking that you're liking what you're seeing or what you're listening, please do review our podcast in any of the platforms you're listening this to. Please, we are relatively new, not even a year old, so we do need your support on that regards. We really appreciate that.
Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on our next episode because we'll be talking about plotting, pantsing, and everything in between and locking down your creative process as we get prepped for NaNoWriMo, which is coming up in November. Until then, we'll see you next week and happy writing.
Bye, see you.
Let me like crunch this cough throat thing and then let me laugh for a minute.
Okay. What is that you're crunching?
It's a throat lozenge.
Okay. We should try.
Ricola, honey, and herb.
Ricola, yes.
I taught a master class and I had a couple meetings before, so it's like 5 hours of talking in a row today. So there. Okay, your head is higher than mine.
No good.
You want to like adjust a tiny bit? There you go. Because then otherwise the frame on the top cuts off your head.
No good. You let me know this stuff, please.
Tiny bit more? There you go.
Let's see. I love him, but I'm not sure how I was going to hold up. But you hold up. I need to write 1,000 billion words still in you. I'm talking to them.
Yes.
Okay? Something between bros. This one is not going into the recording. No, it is.
Oh, you're doing the editing, so you can decide which pieces get to stay.
I have the power.